Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone and today I will tell you about Russian industrial provincial drama, The Plant.
Один я, дубина. Ну так надо, Родина зовет. Вернулся без глаза.
Early in the morning, a man nicknamed Sedoy, for his gray hair color, goes to work at the plant in a small town. He is missing one eye and he walks on feet because he doesn't want to take the bus with his colleagues. The working shift begins and other men take over the neighboring machines. They talk about the fact they have not been paid wages at the plant for 3 months. But at the same time it is not realistic to change jobs, because there are simply no other enterprises in their faraway town. Suddenly, the owner of the plant, Kalugin, enters the gate and announces to the workers that in connection with the impending bankruptcy of the enterprise, they have to work until the end of the month and he will not pay them money now, since the plant has not it. Workers after the shift are completely at a loss as what to do next and how to feed their families. Suddenly, Sedoy suggests his 5 colleagues intercept Kalugin's car on the road and kidnap the respected owner of the plant in order to demand a ransom from him later. Some workers think Sedoy has overheated and is saying a delirium, while others who believe in the seriousness of the proposal do not want to go to jail. Sedoy invites everyone to think, saying now there will be a lot of time for this. That same night, each of the 5 is convinced that he needs the proposal of Sedoy. Terikov is tired of living in a hostel where in the next room his wife, who left him, is sleeping loudly with another man. The gray-haired fish has a wife and daughter pregnant at the same time, and only he had a source of income. Young Vovka treats his seriously ill mother alone. The former bandit boy greatly missed the crazy days of his youth, and the old man with a running cough, nicknamed Cossack, does not want to let his comrades down. Sedoy that night is experiencing the strongest attacks, the consequences of the war in Chechnya. The next day, all 5 agree to join Sedoy in order to kidnap Kalugin and get hold of his money. First of all, each of them gets some weapon that he could find: a hunting rifle, a sawed-off shotgun and even 2 shortened Kalashnikovs that the bandit had left after his dashing youth. Sedoy knows for sure that Kalugin is going home from the mayor on Friday evening. Workers block Kalugin's jeep with 2 Kamaz trucks, kidnap him and take him to the plant. Having barricaded themselves in the workshop, the workers close Kalugin in the back room and put forward demands: a big cash sum and no police. At the call of Kalugin, the head of the personal security of a businessman named Falk agrees to bring the money to the kidnappers. Armed Falk's subordinates also drive up to the plant. They jam communications at the plant and take walkie-talkies. Falk goes to the kidnappers to make sure Kalugin is still alive. In the workshop, Falk understands that everyone around is, to put it mildly, amateurs except of Sedoy, who speaks firmly, is not nervous and holds his weapon correctly. Falk is about to return to the car for the money when suddenly Special Forces team appears and arrests all of Kalugin's guards outside the plant. Falk explains to the leader of the Special Forces that he is the head of private security and all his subordinates have a permit for weapons. After that, Falk calls the regional police chief to ask the Special Forces, as he puts it, stay on the sidelines for now. On the question, who called them, the leader of the Special Forces says that, since the evening he received an anonymous call about the kidnapping of Kalugin, and making sure that the businessman did not get home, the special group traveled 200 kilometers from the regional center to this plant. Meanwhile, inside the factory, no one is happy about the police either. The workers are horrified by the fact that now they all face a prison, and this is at best. Sedoy orders one guy not to panic, the other not to whine, and arranges everyone in positions in case of an assault. Kalugin is also not happy with the arrival of the Special Forces and too much noise around what is happening. Probably his competitors shouldn't know that he is so easy to kidnap. Falk brings a bag of money to the workshop and says that the cops are not with him and in general they don't decide anything here. Sedoy does not believe him and says that he will consult with the guys what to do next. After some deliberation, Sedoy demands that the prosecutor and journalists be brought to the workshop. As Sedoy put, let Kalugin sing to them why the plant is bankrupt and how he drives people out into the street. Sedoy explains to his accomplices that the cops will put them into a prison in any case. Otherwise they will at least look like heroes. Bandit boy does not agree. He says that he signed for money and freedom, and he does not like the laurels of a revolutionary behind bars. Meanwhile, outside, Falk tells his friends about the workers' decision. The guards come to the conclusion that the plant is Kalugin's property. They say he can open it or he can easy close. It's completely legal. An hour later, prosecutors and journalists arrive. Kalugin is taken out and he says to the camera that there is no one in the region is engaged in construction, and therefore there is no market to sell the reinforced concrete products of the plant, so the enterprise went bankrupt. It seems like everything is logical. Suddenly, Sedoy takes off his mask and orders Kalugin to tell in more detail how he has not bought a machine or wire for the plant in 20 years, and finds hard workers for breakdowns, how people work for 12 hours or even 2 shifts for pennies, and they don't get paid not only an increase, but they don't get paid salary for several months, how Kalugin himself with a gang of some hedgehogs in the 90th for a pittance grabbed all the enterprises in the region, as well as about the forest, where the businessman buried many competitors and dissenters. Also, Sedoy demands a story about Kalugin's cronies in the parliament that cover up his black business, and about a pocket governor whom the entrepreneur himself appointed to this position in order to keep the region under his boot. Kalugin, of course, now has nowhere to go. After a while, frightened journalists run out of the workshop and leave the plant in a few seconds. Then the prosecutors come out. They are angry that Sedoy outplayed everyone and Falk dragged them into some kind of circus. Falk also gets angry and starts beating the prosecutor. After some hesitation, the special forces intervene to protect the prosecutor, and a scuffle begins between Kalugin's guards and law enforcement officers. Falk and his 4 guys are in the minority, and therefore they quickly find themselves seriously dented on the ground. The fight is interrupted by the leader of the special forces with a shot in the air. Following this, whole special forces team get into cars and leave because of police chief's order. Inside the workshop, this is noticed, and Rear Boy insists that they need to return to the original plan, take the money and hit the road. Sedoy does not agree. He needs to wait the morning until the news report is shown on the air. The frustrated bandit spits at his feet and goes outside to surrender to Kalugin's guards. Falk disarms Rear Boy, but is in no hurry to let him go. The guard wants to find out from the worker where do live all his colleagues who have closed inside the plant. Meantime, inside the plant, the conspirators are still waiting about idleness in anticipation of the morning. Kalugin comes out of his back room and tries to speak friendly to Sedoy. When this fails, he reminds everyone in the workshop that they are not saints either. When the need came, they immediately became ordinary bandits. Sedoy orders the businessman to hide and not open his mouth again. Suddenly, on the radio, Falk asks the conspirators to open the gate, and then he throws a bag into the opening. Sedoy assumes the worst, a bomb inside, but when the workers unzip the bag, they find various clothes. Looking more closely, they find out that these are the things of their relatives, wives, children, parents of each worker present here. The conspirators do not want to risk their loved ones, so they decide to leave the game. Sedoy does not hold any of them, but he intends to bring the matter to the very end. When the young worker tries to convince Sedoy with persuasion and then with an inaccurate shot from a sawn-off shotgun, the former soldier shoots back and kills the guy. At the same moment, Kalugin's guards in full force begin an assault, and in the very first seconds they injure old Cossack and Pish, an experienced fighter. Sedoy leaves the last worker to guard Kalugin, and then he turns off the light and goes to fight with Falk and his 4. Perfectly oriented at the plant, he kills 2 attackers within a few minutes. Falk, realizing that the enemy is here like at home, orders the remaining subordinates to retreat. Sedoy waits and comes out of the dark alleys to examine the wounded. Cossack, with his last breath, tells Sedoy that he is evil. The old man, on the verge of death, realized that their lone leader had originally conceived such a revolution and, without regret, tricked inexperienced family man into it. Suddenly Falk on the radio asks to open the gate. He brought a bag of money and a first aid kit for the wounded Pish. Kalugin gets angry and accuses his head of security of cowardice, but Falk just brushes it off. Sedoy again refuses money and stands his ground. Then Falk publicly declares that he lost 2 friends here only because the assault took place without the special forces.
Да если бы менты пошли с нами, ты бы один не отбился.
Так чего ж не пошли?
and since Falk expelled the special forces, therefore he did not call him originally. The security guard accuses Sedoy of attracting workers only to capture Kalugin. And even before the kidnapping, he anonymously called the police to cut off the very possibility of escaping with money. Sedoy does not deny it and orders Terikov and wounded Pish to get out of here. Falk, who has not achieved his goal, leaves too. He calls the police chief again to get the special forces team back at the plant. Only Sedoy and Kalugin remain in the workshop. The businessman says that the idea of jailing him is useless. The people from above, with whom he is tied up, will not let him live till the trial. Seeing, to put it mildly, Sedoy's bad attitude towards his own colleagues, Kalugin wants to know why Sedoy hates people so much. Sedoy says that when there was a call for war in Chechnya, his comrades hid as best as they could. But he went. Well, the motherland is calling. He fought for 3 years and returned without an eye. Now he climbs walls at nights from nightmares. Now the state cannot offer him a normal work. For healing he must stay in line. In order not to die of hunger, he got a job at this plant. And then there's bankruptcy. Kalugin answers him shortly. There is no justice in the world. Every man fights for himself. The businessman refuses to call on television to instruct that his interview be aired. He says Sedoy to kill him here. What's the difference, now or later? Sedoy cannot shoot an unarmed man in cold blood, and he has no choice but just let Kalugin go. The special forces are on the move. Falk, having heard from Kalugin the contemptuous fool addressed to Sedoy, unsuccessfully tries to stop the assault. But Sedoy, shooting upwards, provokes the special forces to fire and dies. Kalugin is driving home with the surviving guards. Falk decides to go on foot and leaves, using the same road that Sedoy went to the plant every morning. Please press the finger up and subscribe so you not to become gray-haired.